Okay, I'm back. I had to check and see what the baby dog needed, and it turns out he wants a chicken patty out of the oven. But I can't give him one right now because I can't touch the oven handle right now because of OCD. Then I have to wash my hands afterwards again. So he already had plenty of chicken patties and lots of food, so we're gonna give him some later when Paul comes back and also more food. So we feed him about twice a day, sometimes more, and also give him some biscuits and other stuff on the side, sometimes nuts, or let him lick my salad bowl, and he always licks the salad bowl real clean. Okay, that helps with the dishwashing, so then the grease doesn't go into the drain pipe and clogs it up, so that's very practical. So, and I'm glad that he respects the spray bottle, so that's very, very helpful. So what what fascinates me really about this particular one video, I think that was the discussion, the seventh discussion at Brockwood Park in 1980. I think that's what that video is. And that's a very fascinating one. Okay, there are some other people that chime in once in a while. There's a German guy. That German guy's still alive to this day. I think his name is His name. I forgot the name now, but so the German guy. Well, that's also he had several discussions with that German guy. The German guy was very fascinated by him, and they were all very dear friends. And so I think that was very difficult for the German guy when he said, but you know, but our existence has some significance, it has significance. And then Jiddu Krishnamurti said, no, what kind of significance would it have? We just exist. What kind of significance? Why does it have to have a significance? We just exist. Why do we have to put a significance into it? Some kind of special meaning or something, a kind of religious meaning or something. No, the meaning of life is, what is it? It's not that difficult. What is it? Write under the video. Stop the video and write under the video. What is the meaning of life? So, I know this not just from learning or from hearing other people say it or from reading books or from Jiddu Krishnamurti. I know this firsthand. I know I've experienced this. What the meaning of life is. I really experienced it. This is a biological experience. The meaning of life is love. Okay, I was kissing the baby dog the other day on the couch and just completely immersed in the physicalness and the touch and the kiss and looking in his eyes and saying I love you. That's right there. I realize that is the meaning of life. In that moment, time stands still. In that moment, time is not an issue. It's not time. Not just an issue. Time has nothing to say really. I mean, like time maybe the clock may continue and so on, but in that moment you don't even, that's why it's better to not have a ticking clock. So just sit there and listen to the sounds in your room. There could be a ticking clock too, but for some people then that takes them out of the timelessness. So it would for me, I get distracted with that, and then I think about all kinds of things when I hear this. Paul has one ticking clock that he even brings with him on the van vacations, and that really bothered me. So like on the van vacation, I want to hear the sounds of nature. I want to hear the wind flow over the van, and I want to look out into the sagebrush and the stars and the Milky Way, and I want to hear the coyotes howling from the distance. I don't want to hear this ticking of a clock on a camping trip. I mean, that's really taking it to another extreme in terms of I need to control everything. I need to, that's what's going through Paul's mind. He is extra controlling. Everything has to be controlled. The weather, constantly listening to the weather radio, the time, what time. I need to know what time it is. No, I don't need to know what time it is. I sit here on the couch with my baby dog. Why do I need to know what time it is in that moment? I don't, obviously. So then time has no meaning in that moment, right? It might still go on in all of this, like the clocks are ticking, the atomic clocks are going, and everything is moving and churning, right? So, but for me, psychologically, if I sit here on the couch and I kiss my baby dog, time has no meaning. This time stands still. It's like, I don't know how to convey this. You sit there in meditation and you don't need time. Psychologically, of course, So it's, of course, things they continue to go on and all of this. But it really doesn't have that much significance or dominance or leverage or physics meaning. It's I don't need it. If I don't have an appointment, of course sometimes I have an appointment, okay, then I need to be paying attention to being on time, so to be meeting someone or something, so you have to be polite. You should always be there 5 minutes before the actual appointment. Paul just came back, so now he can he can tend to the baby dog.
Okay.
I'm still making a video. Okay, but the clicking, ticking clock on the wall. My grandmother had one of those that sounded just like the one that Paul has. He has a small one. It's kind of like a retro style in that zinc green that I love so much. And they also made it to sound like these old-fashioned wall clocks. And because this sound reminds me of the clock my grandmother had, it brings up something positive for me. It's a positive memory. So because I have positive memories of my dear beloved grandmother, who died a long time ago. She died way too early. She had way too much stress. Okay. So inflammation and all of these kind of things, and it's all stress related, of course. She was with the wrong husband, the wrong man. Really sad, all of that, really terrible. But I have some good memories about my grandmother. Her name was Augusta, like August, with an E at the end. And so when I was a little baby girl, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes before my brother was born, my parents would go on a vacation, and then I would spend a vacation with my grandmother. Those were the best times of my childhood. And when my grandfather was also on a vacation with his mistress, then I could spend time with my grandmother alone. And sometimes the housekeeper was also on vacation. Then my grandmother and the Great Dane, the Harlequin Great Dane, and we had that house for ourselves. And it was wonderful, really wonderful, wonderful memories. But those made up like only small percentage of my life, these good memories. Okay. The rest of the time I was with my parents, and they're highly neurotic. My grandmother was also neurotic, but she was really there for me. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because it's interesting, When we were together with the Great Dane, even though we had a pretty organized day, my grandmother would make breakfast and lunch and dinner and very specific things that we would do, take the dog for a walk through the garden and all of these things, So time stood still with her. Those were the only times where time felt like it had no longer had a meaning or some relevance. And it was good in that moment. But my parents came back, my grandfather came back. The drama continued, the neurosis continued. And I was back with my parents. And the horror, psychological torment, and all of this. So, yeah. But it was nice with my grandmother, and I will never forget that. So, sometimes these moments, when we had good moments, they can actually save our lives. That can actually make the difference between getting involved with drug addicts or not. Okay, so it actually can. Okay, that's why every moment, every minute, every second of love counts. Love is the meaning of life. Okay, love, when you feel love, when you have this moment of love with someone you feel love for and you feel loved from. Okay, the Great Dane, my grandmother, and I, all equally loving each other, infinitely much. There was a unit, there was the oneness. Then time stands still. Okay, time has no meaning in that moment, even though you see and you hear the old-fashioned clock on the wall. But that's more like an accessory. That's like an image. It's like a painting on the wall, So yeah, that is a good-looking old-fashioned retro clock. That was actually from the retro time, and yeah, and that's all that's all that was about the clock. There was no more about it. There was no time about it in that sense, in the psychological sense. Okay, it was just rhythmically ticking, and there was no meaning into that rhythmical ticking. So that's what I'm trying to get at. And Jiddu Krishnamurti claimed that if we attain this total stillness of psychological time, where time comes to an end psychologically, where we don't give it any more fear factor or stress factor or pondering or thinking about how is this going to continue, what's going to happen, and I catch myself doing this. If we come to this standstill of psychological time, the ending of psychological time, when we come to this mental state of non-duality, non-division, where the word war does not exist anymore. The word division does not exist anymore. A word like hunting doesn't exist anymore. Military doesn't exist anymore. When you come to that, then fully, in a total sense, then you don't age anymore. That's what he claimed. But nobody has achieved it to this point to the point of total rejuvenation state, like of total non-aging, of totally staying like 25. So nobody has achieved that yet. And I personally believe that cannot be achieved. So, but Jiddu Krishnamurti said theoretically, this is very theoretically, that it could be achieved if we don't have this concept of time in us anymore, and this fear of the future and so on, because that causes the most stress. Scientists have discovered that psychological stress is the number one illness causing factor in the world. Okay, now take that into consideration. The number one, more than any other factor, more than any toxin or drug and so on. So, but all of this is terrible, of course, but psychological stress is really the total stress factor for people. Like constantly thinking about what if, oh, I can't leave the house because then this and this. And I can relate, I am not judging anyone. Okay. I'm not judging anyone, actually. I really am not. Even a violent criminal is in a state of extreme stress. Okay. So, right there, in that moment, I'm not judging. I see him and I can feel compassion in that moment, right? But only in that moment, because I come back to the field of reality and I see, obviously, and that Jiddu Krishnamurti, in the same sense, he talked about the baby seal clubbing in Newfoundland. He talked about that a lot. And he said, this is unacceptable, okay? It's an atrocity. It's unacceptable. How can a human being do something like this, he said. And the people he talked to didn't vibe with this statement. They just did not respond in the sense how I would respond to it. I would say absolutely true to him. I would say I suffer from it, just like you suffer from that. I am one with these animals. I suffer from that when I see that. There is no division. Okay. The moment you have no division with another living being, I'm one with that living being. His happiness is my happiness. Okay? The seals, baby fur seal, happiness is my happiness. Their grief and horror and terror and suffering and screaming in pain is my suffering and screaming in pain. Okay? There is no division. And in that sense, he feels that non-duality with the animals, and I feel the same way. But we come back to the field of reality, and we see the perpetrators for who they are. They are perpetrators. We can look at them in a state of meditation of non-duality for a moment, and we can say they are in an extreme mental state of stress, like they're suffering, obviously, even if their brain formation is formed in a way where they don't feel this compassion, this empathy. Sri Krishnamurti believed that everyone can have a glimpse of empathy sometimes. Okay. Everyone can experience that. But for some people, their basic mental state is not with empathy. They do not feel compassion on their daily basis. And they live in total duality. Okay? And they also live by that what other people told them, and that puts a lot of stress on them, and they never question it. Okay? Questioning things puts us into a state of non-duality. Okay, this is the truth. Okay, this is the case for everything that causes people stress. Okay. Face is looking at me. Hey, geh in dich selbst rein. Es gibt nur den einen Weg. Face is looking at me through two bars, like prison bars. I don't know if I could even portray this from here with the camera. But there's a face that is looking at me through the two bars. A pink face of a man. And he has a real sad look on his face. It's good to be sad. It's good to allow sadness. And believe it or not, some people will probably dismiss this, and call me crazy. You tin hat or helmet. But this is how entities reveal themselves. They reveal themselves through pattern formation. And that can be happening in any kind of pattern. In this jacket here. I do something like this. A face suddenly pops out. Same with my sheets, my bed sheets, my t-shirts jammed into that shelf. Okay, so there are faces very often that show themselves, different faces, many different faces. Some of them are troll faces. Some of them laugh about me. I greet them too. I say, yeah, you too have to at some point go into your own mind. You have no other choice. You have no other choice. Yeah, one is real sad. Yes. You have no other choice. There's the face often looks like an old person. Looks almost like a fish. Real sad, like, Yeah, it's sad is that the acting out on other people. There's some of these entities, they've acted out their whole life for 80 years, 90 years, acted out on other people. What comes out of it? More loneliness, more division, more sadness. You could be surrounded by 1,000 people and you be extremely lonely because there is no intimacy between you and the other people. Everyone is acting out. Gangs, gang violence, gang initiation. You think that's your brotherhood? Think again. No. Okay. That's not brotherhood. That's not sisterhood. That's not a community. That's not a cohesive family. That's people thinking in division and violence. And they would kill you in a second if you questioned them. That's not brotherhood. A brother, a real brother, will accept his brother or sister for who they are, even if they question his beliefs. Okay, he'll say, that's okay, we can agree to disagree. That's a real brother. A gang will kill someone if they disagree. There are societies, there are parents, there are fathers who kill their kids if they disagree. So these kids learn early on, from very early on, that their mini godparents are mini devils. They are tyrants. That's what they are. Okay? They are tyrant egos. And they have made you insane. And you need to question them. The moment you question them, the moment you recognize that they are just mentally ill, they have nothing to tell you. Okay? You should feel compassion and walk away. Because how can you deal with them if they're in total resistance, right? They're never going to listen to you. Walk away, but feel compassion for them. Feel like that's where they are at. If you can make it to the point of questioning them and question society and going into meditation, going into the state of non-duality and timelessness and inwardness, you have freed yourself. And then you're on the right path. You're then on the right track. You're then on the healing path. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to convey to the public. To all of us. I'm telling all of this to myself at the same time. My artwork is non-duality. My artwork is healing. It radiates out healing energy. I have 2 houses full of my artwork. Loaded and loaded and loaded. And I'm still making more. I can't help it. I have to. I have to do it. My brain needs that. I have to make this. And I'll make it for the rest of my life out of recycling packaging materials. So I have to do it. Yeah. It's important. And maybe my artwork will never be seen by a wider audience. Maybe it will never be discovered by a gallerist or a publisher. This may very well be the case. And I have to be okay with that. No matter what my ego or my inner child says. The ego says, oh, you need to be discovered. Why? Says the inner child. Time stands still. It doesn't matter, right? I enjoy my artwork. That's what matters. Paul but does too, although he doesn't respect my artwork as much as I do in terms of throwing a ladder into it, treating it like the wall, but that's because his mind is on the ladder and other things. That's why. His mind is on oil changes and Kragen auto parts and fixing the roof and those kind of things. But he still likes my art, so he still gets to enjoy my art. The baby dog enjoys my art. So, the baby dog has been, I'm not making this up, the baby dog has been looking at my artwork sometimes, for a long time. Sits there and just looks at my artwork. This is very remarkable. And I saw the papa dog do the same thing. Papa dog was sitting in front of my painting, Together Forever, that I had just started that painting. And I was working on the formation of Kenny and myself on the last moment that we had together at the veterinarian. At the veterinarian's parking lot, he put a heated pad under Kenny, and he should have gotten the Nembutal or whatever the drug name is. And he should have done that first, but he charged Paul first. They're always into money and all of this. What if Paul doesn't pay afterward? Paul would never act like this, but most people obviously. And then the veterinarian, he is looking after his money. But anyway, on the last moment we had on the parking lot, I was holding Kenny. I was holding his hips. And I was kneeling down there on the parking lot, holding Kenny's hips to comfort him, while the veterinarian and Paul, while they were dealing with the payment, and then he was coming out with the injection, with the syringe. And that was the worst moment of my whole life. But I wanted Kenny not to suffer anymore. We've already been procrastinating that. We had been for a very long time. He suffered way too much. We just couldn't. Neither Paul and I could say goodbye to him. We just had to figure something else out. Some last moment fix or something that would just prolong. And then the arthritis and the inflammation and the hip problems and the neurological problems because of the long back and all of this just continued on until he actually really could not walk anymore. We just, in the nick of time, got him into the van, lifted him in. The veterinarian had to pull him out, and he did not resist at all. He was scared, he was shaking because he knew what was coming. He was afraid. All biological organisms are afraid of dying. Okay, that's our nature. That's how we evolved. But his mind, the infinite cosmos, Jiddu Krishnamurti, that's what he was. That was one of his incarnations. He knew that his body was no longer functioning, and he could no longer be in that body. So that's how I started that painting, Together Forever, on the parking lot of the veterinarian. It was a Sunday, and it was in December 2016. It was December 11, 2016. In the afternoon at the veterinarian's parking lot. Nobody else was there. Just the veterinarian and his wife. And we had to say goodbye. We had no other choice. Okay. We can't make an animal continue to suffer until the heart stands still on their own. That's just too much suffering. That's unacceptable. So I was suffering with him and feeling the relief with him. Okay. But the grief was absolutely infinite. Infinite. And I would not have made it. I would not have made it. I would have committed suicide if I had not found the Papa Dog on Google. The European Basset Hound. Kenny, the Blue God. Kenny was an albino Great Dane. And I have a video. So for those people that don't know him yet, the Buddha made a video. That's the video I made with Kenny when he was still feeling God. In 2015, I believe that was. We made that video in either 2014 or 2015. We made that video together. The Buddha had something to say. And I showed that video of Kenny, the albino Great Dane. I showed that video to Kyla and Maggie, who were the foster parents of Dave, the European Basset Hound. And when they saw the video, they knew that we were the ones to take Dave from all the applicants. And I'm infinitely grateful to them for that. Dave was already 8 years old and had cancer. He had lung cancer. And we did everything holistically. He was on the healing path and made it for another 3 years with happiness and relative health and energy and healing constantly, healing the tumors all the time with clay and healing with diatomaceous earth and kelp seaweed, sparkling white teeth, and never had to have the teeth cleaned. And we found out about this at the end of Kenny's life, about the kelp seaweed. So he suffered from tooth sedimentation and this was so bad. He couldn't even chew on anything anymore. And in the very end of his life, Paul discovers the kelp seaweed from Dr. Andrew Jones, a veterinarian on YouTube. And that totally changed our life. Completely. So we both, Paul and I, take it as well every day, and we never have to see dentists again. The reason why that is mainly hidden from the public is because the corporate agenda is the medical industry, the dental industry. They don't want people to know that, because then they wouldn't have customers anymore. It's all about commerce for them. So important information, all of this. But when I was painting on that painting, Kenny, the albino Great Dane, and myself, the Papa Dog, European Basset Hound, was sitting in front of that painting for an hour and staring only at Kenny, the Kenny formation, the Blue God, for an hour. I thought that was very, very peculiar. So I'm going to end the video now. Peace and love for all living beings equally much.